What horror ultimately does is focus on the object that sticks out in the normal course of society, the thing that doesn't belong, doesn't fit. Now, this is the same thing that racism and sexism does. It puts a woman or a racial other into this position of the thing that doesn't fit, the reason that we can't have this perfect harmony in society because we have this excessive other that holds all of the problems of the world in itself, phantasmatically. So as such, horror is necessarily feminist and anti-racist. But we have to be careful not to just adopt the feminism and anti-racism of society itself. We have to get to the actual position here. So what the feminism and anti-racism of Night of the Living Unalive accomplishes is the way in which we have to come to terms with Barbara's position and Ben's position and realize them both as our own. So Barbara, in her hysterics that makes her an incapable subject until the very end, we are realizing and seizing tight on the necessity of these hysterics in the fact that the entrance of the zombie into the world undoes our world. And these hysterics do lead to a point of drive and action, but only when you seize those hysterics all the way through. If we correct this by saying, no, we need to make Barbara capable and a badass just like Ben, that can be fine, but that is a counter reaction to the insight, the feminist insight of hystericism itself. Hystericism is a philosophically very useful and necessary point of radical self-questioning, of saying, what am I for the world? So the zombie undoes and completely challenges everything that you assume you are for the world. The zombie is a privileged point to question and undo everything you already think you have in your position of life in society. So the anti-racist shock of Night of the Living Unalive isn't that our hero is unalived because he is a black man. The shock is that we realize we are in the position of the black man who is unalived by society. That's what we are for society. So the point isn't simply a misanthropic one, that society is this terrible thing that will gobble you up. What this is a reaction to is society is shown to be not in control. So we've gotten to racism, but because society needs racism. So we get, with Ben's unaliving, we instantly fall into this layering of the newspaper print photos and the shots of him being dragged out and burned like another zombie. So we get the enjoyment that's structurally necessary to bind society together. So the white men who do the act, they're blind to what they've done, and they're just in full enjoyment, no differently from the zombies who are blindly consume people and enjoy it. So we get the exact same thing. It's not a metaphor. It's a structural position. So this isn't simply a matter of engaging an unjust society, as full of injustice society is. This is a matter of society needing this point of excess to destroy in order for its own enjoyment to go on. So it needs to do this to its, quote, subjects, to everyone. It needs to be able to throw everyone into this position of being the thing that you instantly shoot without stopping to ask questions. When you drill down into these positions through horror and you're getting to the thing that sticks out and doesn't belong, you're necessarily going to run into a feminist position and an anti-racist position. You're going to undo the ways in which these positions are what we're already connected to and enjoy in. So the huge thing Night of the Living Unalive accomplishes is we undo this fantasy of the cavalry coming in and saving us at the end, or this fantasy that being an active hero is going to give us our happy ending. It's the farthest thing from a tacked on twist ending just to wrap up the story. It is necessary what happens to them. That's what's genuinely radical and incredibly important about this film. Honestly, I'm trying to compare it to other horror, and this is just so radical a work of fiction. It is so important. This is the reason why zombies are so important. This is a reason. There are other things that this film doesn't touch on, but that's the core of why zombies are still really important today. So it's not that feminism and anti-racism are secondary. It's that they are expressed when you're getting to our own position. They're what is part of our own current structure. So we realize the ways in which, despite ourselves just being in our society, we operate on these levels of sexism and racism. And it's when these shifts happen, when we cling to the thing that sticks out, we get the full picture, basically. So the very interesting thing that horror undoes is the need for an enemy figure. You know, the subject of sexism and racism is an enemy figure, the thing that you build yourself up against and say, that's where all our problems lie. So it's only in really good radical fiction where we're not saying, oh, this is a guy who says something sexist or racist, so you know he's going to get offed because of it. Or, you know, we are angry at him now. We are getting to the ways in which our own position includes sexism and racism. It's a more difficult thing to struggle with. It's difficult to bind ourselves to Barbara, to her own hysterics. It's a hard thing to suffer with. Similarly to my year of rest and relaxation. You know, when we're really clinging tight to hysterics, it's a hard thing to get connected to through fantasy to enjoy. And it's what we break. We have to push through it to break into the enjoyment of drive. That's too much to get into, but hystericism is the pathway to drive, and we see that with Barbara. She does take action. It's short-lived, but it's very important. If you can think of a work of horror that is as radical as Night of the Living Unalive, I'd love to hear it.